And welcome back to Square Off. We are in the frantic final days of the 2024 presidential campaign. Now, we knew Arizona was a battleground state. The TV ads are a constant reminder. But how about this top-tier lineup of visitors? Harris, Walz, Biden, Obama, Bill Clinton, Vance, Trump, with a third Donald Trump campaign trip on Halloween this coming week to a Tucker Carlson show in Glendale. Will Kamala Harris return one last time to try to close the deal with Arizona voters? And how do these visits really help? Our politics panel steps in. Republican consultant Marcus DelArtino with First Strategic Communications and Public Affairs, and Democrat Adam Kinsey at Uplift Campaigns. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having us.
Any connections to campaigns or races we need to know about that we're going to talk about?
No.
It all work, anybody? Okay. Good to know. We've never seen a lineup like this, and I didn't mention all the Democratic surrogates who have been here: Jane Fonda, Mark Cuban, Jennifer Garner, on and on. What kind of difference do all these appearances make? What's the point?
I've been pretty consistent in saying it's not going to make a big difference, except for if your race is going to be this tight. And we haven't had a poll outside the margin of error, I don't think, in 2 weeks, right? So this is razor thin. And so you want to show energy in your campaign, number one. You got to keep the activity going. You keep your voters energized. But two, you got to get out the vote, because this is, at this point in the game, this is an entire get out the vote operation. And so having these people come into town, energize your voters, and beg people to return their ballots is probably going to make a difference, to be honest.
You think it will?
Yeah, it's that tight.
Is this something undecided voters, however few there are still left, might see and maybe make a decision?
Well, it certainly helps, and it's basically free. There's a lot of earned media that comes from this. When you have people that are coming out, even for Prop 139, the abortion initiative, we have people coming and telling their abortion care stories, and that's really compelling for some of those undecided voters. Marcus is right, it does a great job for GOTV, but it also does something else, and this is sort of an inside baseball perspective, but it really helps with organizing, and it's a get out the vote effort for Democrats in particular. And so every time you have a big surrogate event, the organizers are able to organize field activity around that, recruit more volunteers. So the earned media and the increasing field capacity are two really important aspects of this. And you mentioned that you left out a lot of the Democratic surrogates. There aren't any Republican surrogates. There's Tucker Carlson, and that's basically it. The former presidents, they're all lined up behind Vice President Harris. And so you don't have a whole lot of options on the Republican side. Kid Rock might grace us with his presence, but when it comes to surrogates that people are actually motivated by, the Democrats are dominating, and it helps with earned media and volunteer recruitment.
Okay, and we shall see November 5th. Let's move on to a rather dark story. There's a lot of anxiety out there. This one might only heighten the anxiety. 2 apparent terror plots rattled the Phoenix area this past week. Signs of the signs of the division in our politics. A 60-year-old Ahwatukee man faces terrorism-related charges for allegedly shooting up the Democratic National Committee office in Tempe 3 times. No one was injured. Thankfully, investigators feared he was building toward a, quote, mass casualty event. One neighbor described Jeffrey Kelly as a January 6th type. Does any of this surprise you?
I don't think I was surprised by it. I think that the net effect, frankly, is it makes more people go to vote. I mean, stuff like this irritates people, and they want to make sure that their freedom to exercise their vote is exercised. And so I think for whatever purpose this guy thought he had, probably the exact opposite is going to happen.
What about the anxiety? There are concerns about security. There was another terrorism-related case this past week involving the Phoenix Pride Parade. A young man wanted to attack it.
I don't think it has a chilling effect, but it is extremely chilling. It's disturbing. It's domestic terrorism, and I'm glad yours and other organizations are accurately calling it out as domestic terrorism, because that's what it is. And the spin on this disgusts me, and there's so much both sides are to blame nonsense. One side is predominantly to blame. You have one candidate for president who's talking about rounding people up, kicking them out, locking up his people who are detracting, and using the American military against American citizens. On the other side, you have Kamala Harris, who says that he's a threat to democracy. Those are not equal statements. So one person is inspiring political violence and normalizing domestic terrorism, and the other side is not. So when people analyze this and say it's both sides, you need to calm down on that.
Marcus?
I'd just say there's only one candidate who's had an assassination attempt on his life, not once, but twice. So you have to say, if you can't just blame it on the Republican Party, you just can't. You've got to take a more worldly view of this and say maybe both parties have some equal blame in this.
Equal, both parties, sure. Equal, absolutely not. Come on, that's ridiculous. Donald Trump, and I understand that he was the victim, but you know, a lot of that was his ratcheting up the rhetoric, not the Democratic side. When Republicans ratchet up the rhetoric, they put our candidates literally in the crosshairs. When Democrats ratchet it up, they do not do that. It is not nearly the same type of violent rhetoric.
Well, we can agree to disagree.
Okay. Okay. That was good. Quickly.
See how we did it civilly?
It's very civil. Early ballots. I'm not asking you to tell me who's going to win based on the early ballot returns. What are the trends you see in the ballots that tell you what turnout might be like on Election Day, or maybe in the case of the Democrats, whose numbers are way off, although turnout is the same? You know, does that point to a problem, a structural problem?
First of all, Adam and I are going to beg you to return your ballot today. So if you're at home, it's Sunday. Listen, you've got a relaxing day around there. Your laptop's probably near you. Get your ballot and turn it in. Make your life easier. You do not want to be in line on Election Day unless you packed a lunch and probably a dinner and a lot of water. So please do that, number one. Number two is it looks like we're sort of returning to a pre-2020 model where Republicans are starting to re-engage in the early balloting process and getting back to sort of that as a habit, and Democrats looking more towards a election day turnout model. However, there are some spots in Arizona that have some weird trends in it, and they coincide with competitive legislative districts. So if you look at Legislative District 2 or 4 or 13, you know, I see a lot more movement in Democrats returning their early ballots than I do in other districts. And I think what I'm guessing is that the Democrats have a huge ground game going in those legislative districts. They're encouraging their people to return their ballots.
And the congressional districts as well. If you look at the breakdown of returns, Arizona 6 and Arizona 1 are leading the way, particularly Arizona 6, where they do have an incredible ground game. That's the Kirsten Engel rematch with Congressman Siscomani. We are seeing a return to 2016 type numbers. So before Donald Trump told everybody that voting by mail was fraudulent, and that moved Republicans to be day of voters all of a sudden, when they had decades of experience of mail-in voting. Now we're seeing a return to the norm. So Democrats have a slight advantage in turnout, but there are still 250,000 more Republicans than there are Democrats registered in Arizona. So it comes down to Democrats being able to win independents and Democrats winning more crossover Republicans.
Yeah, a lot's going to happen there. Real quick, I want to end on President Joe Biden in town. He's at the Gila River Indian community as we speak, actually, to try to right a historic wrong. He is apologizing, a formal apology, to Native Americans for government boarding schools, which were an absolute disaster for Native families and their children over 150 years of our history. How important, significant is this?
It's incredibly important. It's incredibly overdue, long overdue. It's one of the most shameful things in our nation's history, and he's unafraid of calling it out. Again, should have happened years ago, but I'm glad it's finally happening. And I think it's appropriate that it's happening in Arizona, where we have 22 sovereign nations.
Adam Kinsey, Marcus Dellartino, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And be sure to be here next weekend for our special post-Halloween pre-election Sunday Square Off. We'll see you then.